While you're right that the ESRB doesn't have the authority to enforce these policies, it's not as if they aren't enforced. From experience, I can tell you that when I was underage, I was not allowed to buy games with a mature rating. This was not an isolated occurrence. If I was rejected at one store, I tried others, each time being carded before purchasing the game. In the end, I would have to try and convince my parents to buy the game I wanted, which often wouldn't work. Retailers take the rating seriously. Arguably the most popular one, GameStop, has the following policy. Selling a game to a minor and getting caught will result in immediate termination. If an hourly employee sells an M-rated game to a minor, not only will he or she lose their job, but the salaried store manager will be terminated as well, even if they weren't present in the store at the time of the sale. So there is a huge incentive for employees to enforce this policy. I think the argument that most children in America spend a lot of time playing video games is self-evident. However, here is a source to vouch for this claim. The MPD group found that 91% of kids between 2 and 17, or about 64 million people, are playing video games, up 9% percentage points compared to 2009. MPD says that the growth has been measured across the market, but the strongest gains have come from kids between the ages of 2 and 5, which have increased their gaming incidence 17% percentage points since 2009. Females and teens between 15 and 17 are also helping to drive more growth. This is a good example, as it is a business study and is not likely to be as biased as some others. About conditioning, you argue that a child is not conditioned to not steal, and that they are instilled with moral values that teach them not to do so. A child being taught and instilled with moral values is a very complex process, and conditioning is, of course, part of it. Many of the values we have are only our values because we felt the negative repercussions of doing the wrong thing. People are curious. We don't simply not steal because our parents tell us that it is bad. Many of us have to try things before experiencing the consequences firsthand. I'm not pulling this out of thin air. There are studies that identify the link between playing violent video games and aggressive behavior. For example, the Journal of Adolescence published a study in which they found the following result. The effects of exposure to violent video games on automatic associations with the self were investigated in a sample of 121 students. Playing the violent video game Doom led participants to associate themselves with aggressive traits and actions on the implicit association test. In addition, self-reported prior exposure to violent video games predicted automatic aggressive self-concept above and beyond self-reported aggression. Results suggest that playing violent video games can lead to automatic learning of aggressive self-views. As for violating our First Amendment rights, I'm not suggesting that the games should be banned entirely, only that they shouldn't be allowed for people under the age of 18. How is an age-restricted ban a violation of our First Amendment rights? Is it a violation of our rights that we are not allowed to express ourselves by smoking under the age of 18? It is clear that before you're adult you don't have access to all of your rights. I believe this invalidates the argument that this would validate these rights, and thus a good portion of your whole argument. Lastly, I did admit that it was only a factor in the prevalence of violence, but this is an easy ban to pass and could potentially save lives. It is worth trying, especially since it doesn't violate any of our rights.